translator, so perfectly all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do my best effort. So in case I need it, I just start speaking Spanish. So
No issue at all. No issue at all. Look,
I'll
I mean,
understand. I got no problem with that.
Elizabeth is there. She's from Venezuela. She stays in the US, so she'll help in the translation. So that's not a
that,
problem. Language is a minor thing, Gabriela. Where does language come in? Who's anyway listening? We are just making out from your expressions, everything about your tone of voice, all those nice things. So basically, Gabriela, thank you very much for being part of the symposium. And of course, looking forward to you telling us about situation in Ecuador. But okay, maybe you can tell us about yourself if you want to, but normal, what I've done is let people tell me about the symposium first, because I should start by putting you on the spot. What do you want to do? You want to tell us about yourself first or the symposium? What are you more comfortable with?
whatever you tell me, I'm able to do. So I can start with the symposium. It's okay, whatever. I don't care. Thank you.
I'll do why the symposium first, only because after this, it is your show. I don't interrupt. I come in when you want. So symposium, please. Gabriela, what is this whole symposium about?
Well, first of all, Vikram, I'm honored to be here today in this conference and able to share a little bit of how the indigenous mediation is managed in our country. Being able to form part of these talks with great presenters. And I'm grateful to be part this conversation in mediation and promote path for open and open path for culture of peace all around the world. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Vikram, for that.
No, thank you. Thank you for being part of it. I mean, okay, the fact that we need, of course, the perspective from Ecuador, that's important. So please, so what is the symposium about? What is all?
Okay, actually, I have some PowerPoint that I want to share. I don't know if I can share the screen or I can do later on.
Yeah. I know. I just after I finish. Basically, the idea was to tell people that that if they go to mediatorvikram.com, they can find the details about the symposium. Of course, inaugural address was on 9th August by Ken Cloke, which is the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. If you scroll down, you will find other things. Of course, the World Mediation Circle supporting schedule of activities. So in the schedule of activities, actually the link is here to the schedule, and the schedule has all the YouTube links, all the recordings, everything is out there. Other than that, there is how do you follow up, what are the other things to do? I mean, you could read it all there. The important thing, other thing is the conference that took place. So you can click here and you can go to the schedule of the conference, which has all the various sessions, the YouTube links and the panelists. Go down into this site and you get the other details about other events celebrating Ken Cloke, all the events that he's come on, and the YouTube channel. It's like an index. You can find that here. Symposium number 1, all the speakers and everything is here. So various things. It's like kind of like an index. So just to put it out there, Gabriela, after this, your show. I come in, Elizabeth comes in whenever you want. Elizabeth can tell us about herself later. Your show, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elisa, to be here too. Actually, as I told you before, it's a great opportunity to talk about how indigenous mediation is managed in our country. I'm going to share some PowerPoint that I've been working in. Because I have many topics I want to share with you. I want to talk about a little bit of history of Ecuador, the indigenous justice. Maybe you've been heard a lot of that in those days in the other conference. The justice of peace that we manage in our country, the community mediation, how we've been dealing with some strikes in our country. Later, we have like a bunch of strikes and protests with indigenous people in the past years, and a short conclusion for my exposition. So I don't know if it's okay if I start, Vikram.
Absolutely, but you have to tell us about yourself first.
Perfect. I have worked in mediation for almost 13, 14 years here in Ecuador. Mostly I do in the areas of commerce, family, and constructions, but also that give me the opportunity to work and help Indigenous people to solve various different conflicts in different areas. I work in the Center of Mediation of the Chamber of Quito, and I also have, as you can see in the first slide in the top on the right, Impact on Dispute Resolution is a company.
What you'll have to do, Gabriela, you'll have to just start the slideshow because that part has got cut off.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
There is go. It's okay like that?
Yes, now it's gone. Yeah.
And you can see in the top in the right, Pact on Dispute Resolution is a company that I work with some friend. We are expert in ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolutions. So we do that the whole day on all days in my life. I'm teacher of University San Francisco de Quito in mediation and negotiation. And also I give some classes all around Ecuador about mediation and negotiation too. So I'm happy to be here and share all my expertise in this area.
The only thing, Gabriela, is that what about you being Sebastian's sister? Because Sebastian, we've already met in the first inaugural address. So first of all, he should have been here. I don't know why he's not here, but I think we should have. I don't know why is he not here?
He's not here because he's been training me in English the whole week to say, okay, Gabby, you are done. You are ready to do that. So, okay, I'm gonna be here and I can make it. So that's the reason he's not here with me right now.
Because at the session, I said that he's our official English-Spanish translator. Only thing is that we don't have too many people coming from there. Luis obviously did not need one. There's someone from Peru next week. So if someone does need someone, I will definitely tell Sebastian to be there. So yes.
Did you send him the link to Zoom link?
I think I sent him with the calendar invite. I think I sent him that. Not a problem.
Well, I can write to him if he wants to be here, but he was with me yesterday practicing, so I think I'm able to do this.
Yeah, please. No, he's just a nice guy. He's such a nice guy.
Yeah, actually, he's not my brother. He's my cousin.
Okay. He's still a nice guy. He's still a nice guy, even if he's not your buddy.
I know. It's a family issue, you know.
Yeah. So please, yeah.
Thank you, Vikram. Okay, as I told you before, I want to start talking about the history of Ecuador. As I don't know if you know, Vikram, but the Incas, in America, in South America, they used to live across the Andes mountains. And in Ecuador, the Incas, they came from the north of Peru to the south of Ecuador. But actually was in 1492, I guess a big year for all the American, Spain and the humanity, because the Spanish people, led by Cristobal Colon, they came to Ecuador also, and America and Ecuador, and they reigned. They conquered Ecuador in 1532. The Spanish people they come along with Francisco Pizarro, Diego de Almagro, together with all the army, and they conquer Ecuador. After this issue is really important because after this, the indigenous people that used to live here in this territory were considered as inferior class, and they were discriminated and abused for a long time by the Spanish people. This is really important because for now on, you can comprehend the behavior of most of the Ecuadorian people that live here in Ecuador, the mestizos and the white people, that many times they don't have like a really nice treat towards indigenous people here in Ecuador. Actually, since that age, and from now still having these social class hierarchies, with the white people and mestizos are in the top of the pyramid, and the indigenous people, the people of color, are in the bottom of this pyramid. And as I told you before, that's been happening since the colonization of the Spanish to Ecuador. Actually, when that happened, the Spanish, they were in the top of this hierarchy, social hierarchy. When they come to Ecuador, they were in charge of the commerce, the social administration, and the economics in our country. And for a long time, the indigenous people here in Ecuador, they want and they need to be here by the government, and they try that their rights will be respected and recognition in our law and in our Constitution of Republic of Ecuador. Okay, I have a very good friend. I don't know, many people know about him internationally. He calls Jaime Ventimilla. He's an expert mediator in community mediation, and he wrote a paper, and he said that the fact that the conflict has not been handled correctly by Ecuador, of the government of Ecuador, by the justice administration too, is because the government have been ignoring the ethnic and cultural diversity of the indigenous nationalities in our country. As maybe you want to know that, for example, in Ecuador, we have 18 millions of people. The population of Ecuador is around 18 million of people. And we have like almost 1.1 millions of indigenous living in our country. Mostly they live in the mountains, as you can see in this slide. 68.20% they live in the mountains, followed by the Amazon around 24.06%, and only 7.56% they live in the coast. Actually, you can find like many nationalities of indigenous people in our country. We have the Sachilas, Cachi, Espera, Agua, Quichuas, Shuar, Ashuar, Chihuar, Cofán, Siona, Secoya, Zapara, Andoa, and Guarani. There are plenty indigenous nationality that we have living in our country. But actually, the Quichua nationality is the highest percentage in our country. Almost is around 1,000 people that for this nationality that live in our country. And they live all around the mountains that I told you before. Actually, the Constitution of the Republic of Ecuador, which states in their Article 56 and 57, they recognize the indigenous communities, the people and the nationalities that are part of the Ecuadorian states. And they guarantee to the indigenous communities, nationalities, their rights, and help them to protect their identity, sense of belonging, and ancestral tradition and forms of social organization. And actually, I think the government of Ecuador been working so hard to give to the indigenous people many ways or different ways to access to the ordinary justice, so they can solve their problems. The issue is that they live outside from the city, they live in their lands, they live in rural area. So many times it's really complicated for them to come to the city or to the near organization of administration justice in our country. So that's the reason the law in Ecuador create different systems so they can access to justice. For example, they have first of all, the ordinary justice. They have the justice of peace that I'm going to explain later on, and they have the community mediations too. Most of the conflicts that indigenous people have are family issues, neighborhoods like fights, theft, boundaries, slanders. They have ownerships and lands on other assets. And they have also accusation of the members of the community, but people outside their means. Here, for example, I shared this slide about ordinary justice, justice of peace, and community mediation. But first of all, I want to start talking about how is the indigenous justice in our country. It maybe has some similarities with the indigenous justice all around the world, because I think maybe they have basic principles that they share. But before enter to the justice of peace and community mediation, I want to talk about the indigenous justice in our country. How do you define, or how people here define the indigenous justice? Actually is a norms based on cultural values and principle, which is on procedures and practice that regulate social life in the community and their territory. They have actually, as I said before, plenty of the rights of the indigenous people in our country have been recognized by the Constitution of the Republic of Ecuador. And also Ecuador has submitted an agreement and the Convention of OIT, the United Nations 169, that help indigenous people recognize their rights and help people and give them the opportunity to decide about their priorities related to their own economy, process, social and cultural development. As I said before, this agreement was ratified by Ecuador in 2017. In this sense, the indigenous justice arises as a mechanism to guarantee the values and principles of the aborigines, and they can maintain respect and harmony of human beings. It's really interesting because indigenous people in our country, they have three principles like they respect all the time. That is the Amaquilla, Amayuya, y Amashuya. That's mean do not steal, do not be lazy, and don't lie, do not lie. So these are the main principles from indigenous people in our country. This Quechua, actually there's in Quechua, there's not Spanish either, there's Quechua expressions. These ones promote ethical conduct, values and practices from indigenous people and nationalities, such as the recognition of plurinational and intercultural state established and recognition actually in our Constitution of the Republic of Ecuador. The indigenous justice have many similarities as the ordinary justice in our country, especially in the stages of the indigenous mediation. But the indigenous mediation, actually, the indigenous justice, sorry, also is public. The authorities are elected by the community. They earn like on the nationality. They not receive any remuneration for discharge. There is a big assembly that decides the conflict. And there is free, everybody can go, everybody from the community actually can go to the assembly. The penalty or the sanction actually is public, but the indigenous justice try to reincorporate the people to their own community after they pay from the penalty or the sanction. The community norms are based on their costumes, on their traditions of each community. And the indigenous authorities, they have jurisdiction in all matters inside their community and their territory, okay? And the process, I told you before, is really interesting because they have many similarities like our process. For example, they start the conflict or settle down the conflict with the notice or demand that called Huyachina. So they start presenting the demand, the process start, and after that goes the investigation process that called the Tapuikuna. And after that, they have this confrontation stage between the accuser and the accuser that called the Chavapurana. And this is in a state the parties can talk, they present investigation, document, testimonies, etc. After that, they have the Kilpichirina, that is the penalty adopted by the assembly. They have the Pacachina, that is the execution of the sanction, that mostly of the times is the forgiveness and apologies in from the community. So it's like restore the issue of the conflict in front of the community. This is how the indigenous justice being handled and managed in our country, okay? And that is one of the ways that people, the indigenous people, solve this of their problems. But actually, and also they have the justice of peace. And this is actually a really interesting method because the justice of peace is recognized also in the Constitution of the Republic of Ecuador, and they have their own like normative body or laws. In the resolution of 215 of 2014, this law regulates the organization and operation of justice and peace in Ecuador. The justice of peace, the authorities, they act like judges. They decide by the parties. The parties do not decide. The judge of peace, he's the one that decides by the parties. He's a leader that is chosen by the community, and they resolve the conflicts in equity. This is really good because the indigenous people that are not able to come to the city because, as I said before, they live in the mountains, in the land, and they don't have cars. They are not able to come here to the city, so they can access to this justice of peace and trust in these authorities to decide for them in equity, respecting their traditions and their own laws or way to being, okay? The justice of peace, I say, they solve inequity, their individual conflicts and neighborhoods and violation and everything that happened in their jurisdictions. Actually, in accordance with the law, because the judges of peace have this authorization to work by the main organization of justice in our country, and they have to work in coordinate matter to inform and motivate people to access to justice of peace. This charge of justice of peace is free. They don't have any remuneration for this, but it's like kind of like an honor roll because these are the judges of peace are respectful. There's people that is really considerate in their community, and everybody respect them. They will be elected by their community, and they will remain in their office until the community itself decides to remove them in accordance actually with the law. The judges of peace in our country, they don't need to be a legal professor, just a judge of peace. Actually, they've been held a lot of these courses around the country. I have the opportunity to be a trainer of most of them. This course is being held and financed by the Germany Society of International Cooperation, and they try to train people from the north of Ecuador in the border with Colombia to prepare them as a community mediator and judges of peace. So it's really interesting because when we have these courses, like we start like 3 years before, we give these courses like 2 or 3 times per year with some of my friends that I've been working with. We have plenty of people in these courses, like 60, 70 people that want to formate or educate in mediation ADRs and being, as I said before, community mediation and justice judges of peace. As you can see, this is the map of Ecuador. You can see different provinces or cities in Ecuador, and you can see how many justice of peace or judge of peace we have all around our country. For example, in Manabí, we have 74. Guayas, we have 81. That's a lot of judges of peace all around our country. We have in Cotopaxi 18, in Carchi 22, in Babura 27. And in the next database, in this database, you can see all the cities of Ecuador. You can see the number of judges of peace and how many cases they've been handled, and how many cases they've been settled an agreement by using the justice of peace in our country. Right away, the community mediation. What is the big difference between justice of peace and community mediation? First of all, as I said before, in the justice of peace, there is a third party that is a judge. So he decides for the parties. In the community mediation, it is a third part, but it's a mediator. So he does not decide by the parties. The parties decide by themselves about which is the best agreement for them, okay? In 1997, in our country, the law of arbitration and mediation was enacted. So there you can find all the guidelines about arbitration, mediation, and conciliation in our country. And actually, in this law, they talk and establish about the community mediation, and actually have most of the principles or guidelines of the regular mediation as the same as the community mediation, starting to consider it, for example, that you cannot present an appeal of the Mediation Act, even you are in commercial mediation or you are in community mediation. Is the same. You cannot present an appeal of the Mediation Act in our country. Community mediation, I consider it the social, economic, and cultural and anthropological condition of our communities, Indigenous people, Black neighborhood organizations, and community organizations in general. And also allows them to establish mediation centers for these members as much as the community needs. It recognizes special characteristics and apply the principle of gratuity. What I mean with this, these community mediations are free. The parties they don't have to pay for the mediation access. In some cases, there is like a small fee they have to pay, but only for administrative cost, but not for the mediation process itself. The community mediator are respect people from the indigenous communities. They focus in help people to resolve intra-community conflicts. So far in our country, we have around like 300 indigenous mediator, community mediator too, and at least 50% of them are active mediator now. I think is a big number. We still growing in this number, but I think we're doing pretty good actually. An advantage to consider in the community mediation is saving money for people in these communities. Do not prolong the mediation process. Cost, if they have a cost, I said before, is very little. It restores the trust of the parties, maintain the relationships in the communities, and the mediator knows the life of the communities because they speak the same language. Mostly they live in their jurisdiction. They speak the same language, and they try to reinforce the cultural identity and help people do not discriminate against the costume of culture of these communities, okay? So it's really important person inside their communities. The community mediation is distinguished by, it's informal. They do not require a special proceed to establish the community mediation. Actually, the only fact or requirement that they have is the parties recognition the mediator, the community mediator. Sometimes the communities make them to write as a voluntary agreement in the Mediation Act. Mediators support meetings with peaceful solution for members. Mediators use the confidentiality. All that they handle or talk in the mediation, community mediation, are confidentiality, and nobody will know about the conflicts that the parties been handled with. It's a voluntary process. The parties are able to leave the mediation community when they want. It's not obligatory to them to stay in the community mediation. The mediator is neutrality. So he cannot lean in favor of any of the parties inside the mediation process. But sometimes he could eventually suggest a settlement proposal or maybe an agreement for the parties. As I said before, it's free of charge. There are no costs for the mediator, the community mediation. And also, as I said before, too, can be as many of mediation centers that the community needed to help people to solve the problem in peace, not using the violence of the force in our country. Well, finally, I want to talk about the strikes that we've been handled in our country in the past years. Actually, we have these two big issues. In the year of 2019, in the government of Lenin Moreno, that followed Rafael Correa government, we have like 11 days of national protest in our country, led by the indigenous communities. It was because the government of Lenin Moreno declared a decree 883 that tried to eliminate the subsidies from the gas and diesel in our country. So indigenous people do not like this idea. and they decide to start this national strike and block all the entries, the main entries to the capital, to the main roads or streets to come to the capital. They block. They came from all the mountains, Amazon coast to the capital. And we have like these, I said before, these 11 days of national strikes. After some acts of violence and force, the government in Ecuador decide to settle these disputes and look for peace. And they decide to go and handle this in mediation process. Actually, it was kind of like strange for the people who knows about the mediation in our country, because this mediation process was transmitted in TV channel. And everybody can know about the mediation. And it was strange because, as you know, and all the mediator in all the world know that mediation is confidentiality. So just the parties have to be there. And this mediation process was handled in the TV, national and international. So CNN was in the mediation process and all the Ecuadorian people was in the mediation process. And actually was leading by a general secretary from the United States, United Nations, and some authorities in our country. But finally, we have peace. I don't know, actually, we have a really mediation process, but we have peace in those days in Ecuador. That was really important. For me, it was more like a negotiation process, but no mediation per se, but that's what happened in our country. And recently, in June 2022, there were protests again from the indigenous people, leading by the CONAIE. CONAIE is a political group that lead the indigenous people in our country. Once again, they demanded lower fuel prices, subsidies from agricultural products, among other issues. Once again, as I said before, there was a huge protest, almost 3 weeks. The indigenous people come once again to the capital, to Quito. They once again block all the main entrance, and was really bad for the country per se, because we've been dealing economic issues after the COVID, after the pandemic. All the people need to work, and they decide to block everything here. So, for example, the farming, they have to throw, and the farming and the cattle people that work in the lands, they have to throw away, for example, the milk from the cows, the tons of it. They have to kill their animals because the food cannot get to the farming people, even to the capital, because the big trucks cannot come to the capital or to the other cities. People have to go to the house again and work virtually because there's no public transportation those days in Ecuador. So it was a big issue. Actually, I have some pictures that I want to share to you. The indigenous people come in these big trucks. They block all the capital, but was really interesting because most of the Ecuadorian people, as you know, as I said before, the indigenous people are the minority in our country, but they have many force because they work in farming, in lands, and they have to start working in their communication skills, and the government need to hear them so we can work in peace and live in peace in our country. But most of the Ecuadorian people kind of get tired of the strike after 3 weeks of this. So they start, in the other hand, this peaceful strikes, asking to the Guillermo Lasso, that is our president, that please settle down these battles between indigenous people and Ecuadorians and the government. So as you can see in this, actually in this slide, these huge lines of people screaming for peace in our country. Actually, I was in these strikes walking with many people. You can see these huge lines of cars like clapping and say, please settle down. The entrance, for example, from the airport were blocked. And if you want to go to the airport and have an airplane because you have a trip, you cannot go because all the main entries were blocked by the indigenous. And the problem is that when these strikes happen, there is many bad people infiltrated. So we have like robberies, we have damage to private property. Many people damage the public part of the city, the streets, the parks, the building, and this is so sad for all the Ecuadorians, not just the indigenous people, not just the minorities, for all the Ecuadorians people. And actually, as I said before, the economics of our country get another recession. It's like going back one again because the people and the country is not producing, people cannot work, and everything stopped once again because we have these strikes in our country and people do not have the communication skills. People in our country do not, and most of the indigenous people, they don't know how to handle and being heard by the government and not using the violence and the force. So for me, Vikram and Lisbeth, for me, the conclusion is that the government have to keep working to offering to the indigenous population certain forms of conflict resolutions that are compatible with their culture and with legal norms of the government of Ecuador. The community mediation is really important and help the indigenous people and the rest of the Ecuadorians concept and respect dignity of their life, encouraging the empathy and the dialogue between the indigenous people, the minorities, with the rest of the Ecuadorians, forgetting about the violence and the force, not using the violence and the force, and actually the advantage of using the mediation, supporting not only the ordinary justice, well, actually I help to ordinary justice, but actually promote the principles of solidarity, social tolerance, and cultural cohesion in the small communities. Just one thing that I forgot, the past strike that I told you in June 22, they finally end this strike with another mediations leading by Guillermo Lasso in this government. Actually, as far as I know, this mediation process is still open. Yeah, actually, in this time is confidential, so nobody knows what is happening. Just the parties that is correct. That is the way to handle the mediation process. But as far as I know, they've been searching like partial agreements, and the conversation is still between indigenous communities, indigenous political parties, and the government and the church in our country. So that's all I have to say for right now, Vikram.
That's quite a lot, Gabriela, quite a lot. But the interesting thing was, should I close this thing?
Yeah, yes.
I'll close the screen, yeah.
Okay.
Interesting was the part was that was like Professor Gabriela talking to us. It felt like the classroom okay, you understand. It was that kind of okay. but tell me one thing, interesting thing. I don't know whether you've noticed this, but there was last symposium, there was someone from Indonesia. She was saying that she's looked at it from the people who live in the mountains and the people who live on the coast. They look at disputes differently, they look at dispute resolution differently, because Kichwas are largely, you're saying, in the mountains. And do you see any difference between the way they handle and look at disputes?
You know what? I don't know actually, because Vikram, most, as I said before, we just have like 7% of the indigenous people that live in the coast. And mostly of our Indians, they live in the mountains, that are the ones that come to the capital and promote the strikes. So I don't know if they maybe this small and really small percent of indigenous people that live in the coast, but they come with the wave. They come with the whole bunch of Indians that live in the mountains. So it's I don't know if they have a different point of view, but they come with the wave.
Because her concept was that the people who live on the coast, because they're interacting with a lot of people, because people come in from the sea and that interaction has happened over time. So maybe it's not such a dispute ridden society, while those in the mountains, yeah. Is there something there?
Yeah, actually, if you see like all the Ecuadorians, for example, different cities, not just indigenous peoples, all the Ecuadorians that live in the mountains like me, like I do, and the ones that live, for example, Guayaquil, Guayas, that is a big city near to the ocean. They have this big port. It's a different view to see the conflict, because actually most of the strikes and everybody come to the capital, because here live the president of the Republic of Ecuador. So sometimes we have to put the chest and deal with that. But the people that live outside from Quito, sometimes they don't realize the magnitude of the strike that we have to handle here. So, and yes, they maybe are more relaxing, more open mind. They kind of still working. We cannot still working, and they kind of still working. So maybe it's a different issue, but at least it's a big problem for all our society. All the Ecuadorians have to learn how to handle this, not just the people that live in or by the mountains. Like, everybody is involved here, because we have, as I said before, we have these social hierarchies in our countries, and this is a really important issue for convivence of all the Ecuadorians.
Can
I
I
think we
add
should.
something?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Yes, because I think that's really fascinating. That's an important topic. And in Venezuela, we see that as well, depending on the ones who live in the mountain. I come from the mountain too. I come from a city that is right there, right in the mountain. So the ones who come from the mountain, they are well known for being more shy, more quiet, less dialogue, less communication. So I think it's really important to be aware of that, depending on who you are dealing with, and see what strategies to use to deal with the conflict. It will be different. The ones from the coast, they're more loud, more open to communicate. So that's really, really important. And I think that's the same concept that we see everywhere around the world, regardless of where the mountains are located.
I think let's do that. Let's have a study on this. Let's ask everyone to give their little inputs, and let's put it together. Maybe they'll come out interesting things, like you just said. You've noticed this. So similarly, a lot of people might not have noticed this aspect, because she picked it up in that symposium and she said, look, I haven't done a research on it, but it seems to be, with her practical experience, there seems a difference. I think needs to be studied and maybe looked at as a separate area of course. Yeah, Gabriela, you're saying something.
Actually, maybe the needs from these people are different. The one who live in the mountains and the one who live near the oceans or in the coast. So maybe their needs are really different. So it's really interesting that too.
But tell me, Gabriela, you said there's Pakka China. There is a Pakka China there. One out of those 5 different steps. What is the literal meaning of Pakka China?
Well, I said before, is the different stage of the indigenous justice, and the Pacachina is this stage that is the end of the process of the indigenous justice that settled the penalty or the sanction for the assembly to the people that is in this conflict. So they say, okay, perfect. You're rough, for example, or I don't know, you did something wrong. So
yeah, but what is the meaning of the word? Is the
actually in Quechua, I don't know what's the meaning in Quechua actually, because I actually before it's not Spanish, it's a Quechua expression. Gualachina, Tapicuna, Wilpichirina, Pacayama is just a Quechua expression.
So I'll tell you why I'm asking because I always find it interesting to pick up words and see we are using a similar word. How did it get here? So Pakka means final. In Hindi, in our language, Pakka means final. So I was looking at it from the way that the process, it seems to be the final stage. So I was thinking
but I can give it, for example, chachay means frío. I know that Quechua expression, you can use it. And guagua means a little kid. I can share those expressions in Quechua for you.
No, but I was trying to see from our language, I was picking up that word, the Pakka part of it. Well, I'm just thinking, have we got some word from there into this place? Because obviously there's been trade happening. People have been interacting with people. So words definitely follow. Maybe we'll find out what it means in Quechua language. What does Pakka mean? So,
Yeah.
but tell me, the ILO, the convention, that means if it's been ratified, those rights are now, of course, available to the indigenous people. It's actually do they actually get that? It's always been taken care of that, or are there are some gray areas there?
About the Convention 169, you told me about Vikram? Yeah, actually, Ecuador subscribed that agreement in 2017. And the idea of this convention is to promote the indigenous right, like also they have the right to decide on their own economic situation, political and social administration in their own communities. They've been there is an issue between our law government and how they handle the indigenous right in their community. And so the state of government tried to book a search for equality or a normal convivence between the norms of the state of the government and how the indigenous people can live and handle this in this community. I don't know if you got my idea, Vikram, what I'm telling you.
No, because I'm saying that because only I think about 24 countries have ratified it. So it's a good step that Ecuador has taken. But finally, on the ground, is it really coming out as the result of it is shown there in relation, because the laws, how are they drafted and how it's looked at? You would have looked at it, but I just feel that it's an important step. So I think this needs to be, it needs to be put out, because definitely it is not easy for a government to ratify such a convention.
No, actually, it's not easy, but I think, as I said before, I think the mediation is a really good key for indigenous people, for all the Ecuadorian to sit in a table and have a nice, respectful dialogue between parties. And I can be empathy with you because I know what your needs, what you think. I can be assertiveness with you, with the parties, and I think the mediation give that space to the people. So I think it's a great key, actually. And here in Ecuador, the mediation in generally start growing really fast. As you know, Ecuador also signed the Singapore Convention. So we are doing pretty good in mediation in Ecuador, instead other countries around the world, actually.
But in relation to that, the laws you said, law on arbitration and mediation, that law that exists, you use the word conciliation also. Are you differentiating between the two? Mediation and conciliation?
Yes, it is. Actually, in the law of arbitration and mediation in our country, there is specific article that say when you talk about extra process conciliation is the same as mediation. Okay, there is a specific article that say that. That means that when you talk about conciliation in our country, you have to go to the ordinary justice. And when you talk about extra processal conciliation, is the same as mediation. So there's a big difference. And what is the difference between that? In the conciliation process, there is an authority that participate like an authority in the process of conciliation. And in mediation, as you know, the third party is a guideline for the parties, but do not decide for them. So there is the difference in conciliation and mediation in our country. For example, as far as I know, for example, in Spain, there is people, expert conciliators, and they acting with the parties, and they give idea, and they have this really interacting conciliation process. And in Ecuador, conciliation is the same as mediation.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. I mean, that's the whole idea that I've been trying to put across, that of course, whatever word you use, it's still mediation if it fits into that definition in the Singapore Convention. But I'm just saying, is it separately? You said they're two separate things. I mean, is conciliation, does it have a separate provision in the law that talks about, you said about conciliation? I just want to understand this one, although it's not connected to the indigenous people and mediation, but I'm just interested to understand, where does that conciliation word fit into your law? What does it say there?
Well, actually, as I saw it, for the conciliation, just like an IDR, if you want to call that way, in our country is equal a mediation.
Yeah.
If you use it like ADR, it's just similar as mediation. You can find that in the law of arbitration and mediation in Ecuador.
No, that's what I'm saying, because this confusion, you just the fact that you use the word, because I'm just saying that there is so much confusion. Mediation, conciliation, it's a potato thing that the world keeps doing and confusing the user. I'm just saying, has the law used it differently, then it's a different thing, but otherwise it's just a potato discussion, nothing more than that.
Okay.
So, yeah. But I think what you said about transmitted on television, that's interesting, that whole mediation process.
No, well, I don't know what is interesting. It was a big surprise. And you know what is kind of funny sometimes too, that many people want to be a mediator. I'm gonna be a mediator, and and all the really mediators that we are registered in our country as mediator and have studied for being a mediator and have a master's and degrees and everything, we look each other and say, okay, you are really a mediator, or you are like a good people? You want to work for peace, or you are a negotiator, but you are a mediator, and everybody want to participate.
Please remember, Gabriela, I'm on that side. I'm with those people. And I'm saying they have the skill, this class distinction between the qualifications, certification, this class distinction that is being created in mediation. I am fighting for the other side. I'm saying that this is not a skill that you go to a factory and put it in someone in 40 hours. This takes a lot to be that person, that mediator. So I'm saying that the user has to decide. No one else in this world can decide other than the user. If the user says, I trust this person, and the user say, that's the person, that's the mediator. No one else in the world can be a mediator except the person whom the parties trust.
You know, what you said is really true, because, for example, as I told you before, I work in the Center of Mediation of the Chamber of Commerce of Quito, that actually is the bigger mediation center in the whole Ecuador. As in the last protest, we want to participate as mediator with the indigenous people, but the indigenous people do not recognize us a mediator for them. So they, no, I don't want to work with the mediator for the chambers of commerce. I want to be the church, or maybe a leader for the social organization, to be as mediator, not the one of the chambers of commerce. So we have to sit down and cross our legs and say, okay.
That's exactly what I'm saying, that you can take all the qualifications in the world. The user has rejected you. That means you are not a mediator for the user.
You know, but I have a question still in that, because there are people, I don't know if it's a don. I don't know how to say, like a don in English. I don't know how to say that.
What's the
but
word?
Don. He's like don. That you have those criminal, criminal dons.
A gift.
A gift. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if the people have that gift to help other people and can be a mediator, but actually there are prepared people that actually they have a gift too, and there are prepared people that can help the other one. So
Well, I tell you, Gabriela, we're using the word gift. Let's not use it as a gift. It is a skill. They have an inborn skill, because for some reason we try to in some way underplay these people because of this world, this academic world that has created this, that we are the ones who know about mediation. No work is happening. Mediators don't have work in this world, but we are sitting there saying, oh, we are making you mediators. Is the user wanting you or not? That's the point. So that is why I'm saying that I'm fighting on that side. I'm going to keep fighting on the other side. I'm going to fight for all those people who have the skill. And please, I keep telling people, don't create this class distinction. It's like mothers. Tomorrow, the government is going to say that you have to take this certification to be a mother. Please don't do it. That person has an inborn skill to be a mother. It comes from within. Please leave it to that. Everything you can't get into, it's this colonization thing. We will decide who will sit in your room to do the mediation. We will tell you who. Please stay away from our house. Stay outside. You have other work to do. Please, we know whom to sit with. We will identify that person. You don't have to tell us that. So I'm fighting on the other side. I'll keep that fight going.
Yeah, it's really true. And you are really right in the other hand, because if the indigenous people doesn't want me to be a mediator, they won't be voluntary in this mediation process. So I won't do anything there. It's like, okay, I can have many degrees, master or whatever, but if the parties do not feel empathy with me, I cannot do anything in that mediation process. That's true.
Absolutely.
So
we have to understand that.
There is an interesting study that been handled by the University of Loyola. There is a really interesting mediator that called Javier Alessioli. I don't know if you've been here before about him. He has going on this study that said, what is a mediator? Is a gift, is a skill, or the prepared people can be also a mediator. So it's a big, I don't know, discussion or conversation about who is the right mediator. But as you said, it's about the need of the parties, and the parties feel empathy with you, because either way, in the other hand, they want trust on you. So it is interesting.
I'll tell you what.
I think it may depend also on the severity of the cases, because sometimes the gift can be enough to solve or to guide or to help someone. And there may be some other cases where some additional help or additional preparation is necessary. And we need to be careful if we really want to help the parties the right way. if we're not sure about something, at least find the help to
No, I'll tell you,
deal with
Elizabeth,
those.
I'll tell you, because you're getting me into a direction which I really don't like doing in this symposium because it's an indigenous people, but I will, because you said it, I'll have to counter it by saying that people, because it's an industry to give qualifications, makes it some rocket science. It is people sitting with people, understanding people, what they are looking at, and it is beyond interests. People are saying you this book can interest. It's beyond interests. It's about them being able to understand there's a value based aspect to it, there is a humanistic aspect to it, the heart soul spirituality aspect of it, which is not discussed. Because like it's like the Newton situation, that the gravity is there, has always been there. Newton did not come up with gravity, but suddenly the word came in and science started using the word. No, gravity exists and it has always existed. You're giving a word to it doesn't mean today you don't have words for a lot of things that go into mediation. So are we going to say that we are going to wait for you to get that word? No, this process will continue. People are going to keep using this process. They will find those people. It is not rocket science. If you, like she said, justices of peace, they handle it on equity. Now the fact is, people know that equity, those people know that equity aspect of it. They're impartial, they're fair, and that is what the law is supposed to be. We've tried to get this whole colonizers concept to make a 1000 page book, which is the penal code and all, will make it so complex. Finally, at the end of the day, it is all about a just, equitable, fair, impartial situation, and everyone who does that, that will be the law. And if the law is not that, challenge that law, because that law should not exist. So everyone who is sitting down, if three of us sit down and we are discussing some issue, and within ourselves we resolve that issue in a fair, equitable, just manner, the law has to support us. If the law doesn't support us, then we should challenge that law. So that I'm just saying that that part of it we'll have discussions on, but in a separate thing. On the indigenous people part of it, we have to look at it from their perspective, that in the communities, that aspect of mediation definitely is part of their lives. And how are we, Gabriela, getting that, developing that? Are we developing that in Ecuador? That
I think actually, I'm sorry, when Vikram was saying, what I believe about what is wonderful about this symposium is exactly that. That's what we're working for, to learn from each other, because there's no right way to practice mediation. And if we get stuck and trying to think, okay, this is exactly the way that you need to do it, then that is not right. That is not okay, because every case is unique. I think what is important is what Vikram is doing now, creating awareness about different strategies around the world, different mediation practices that we can learn, and that way we can enrich our practices and use those tools whenever we need to practice mediation. So that's why I really love everything that Vikram is doing right now.
Actually, I got your words. You say something really interesting and important in mediation. It's not depending how many years you've been practicing mediation, because each case is unique. And always you have to be a great human being to help people. And that is the reason of mediation. That is the principle for us, being a good human being. After that came the capacity, the school, the laws, and everything. But being a good human being, that is the base of mediation, and help people to build a culture of peace all around the world.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea, is to expand the discussion on this. What you just came up is a very important part, the aspect of being a good human being. We have to start with that, and that part of it develops over other things, because once you're connecting with human beings, the other aspects of the humanistic aspect of what I was saying, all other things get connected to it, which is by itself, maybe words are not there to even talk about it, because these are human connections, and those human connections, how it works, what energy fields are involved in it, what is like, I mean, Elizabeth again has heard me enough time, but I will keep repeating it, heart, soul, spirituality being a part of it, how that works. How does that, first of all, why do we even need to know how it works? Because we don't need theory part of it. We don't need to define it. We have to experience it. And it's an experience. And that is what we have to take it as. Let's not try to put into words things that we don't maybe understand. It's a much, much larger thing happening there when you, because up two people themselves by itself having a dispute is unique. And getting a third person into that picture, and of course the dispute being unique, the people being unique, that a whole interaction happening there, you can't be prepared for it. It is something that has to come from within, and being a good human being and wanting to help people and actually assisting. When you say to assist, you mean from the heart and
Yeah,
putting your soul into it
I like it.
and getting that whole spiritual thing. That aspect of it has to be brought out. I mean, we need to put it across out there.
Yeah, yes, that is great. And nice word, Vikram. That is the truth of mediation. Being, as I said before, being a good human being. That's the base of everything in mediation, I guess.
And let me tell you,
and this spirituality that you say too. You connect with other people by empathy too, and you have empathy and they trust in you. It's like everything goes. I don't know.
no, like, let me tell you that I mean, the very simple thing that we just said, that the parties should trust you. Of course, I'm moving away from the word parties. I moved to the word participants after my conference, and someone in the conference said that all the word parties has come from the court system. We'll use participants. I've gone into using the term participants. So when we just casually say participants trusting the person, that trust has so much going into it. Seeing you in a community for 50 years, 60 years, they have looked at every aspect of you. Every person you've interacted with it, they've seen that aspect of you. Your value systems, they've seen. They know every. I mean, then if that trust comes in, it's not. I mean, it's not so simple as putting your dispute in someone's hand. It is them creating that, and that comes from a lot of seeing you, your conduct, your relationships with people, how you go about it. They've seen all that. That is why mediation, if we develop it from there, it'll develop. This part of mediation, the other one that we'll make a mediator in 40 hours, if we keep sticking to that, mediation will not develop. The conversation, the qualifications, all that will keep happening. The user will not use it. Who will use it? The ones who are forced in courts to use it, because the gun will be put on your head that go settle. And that gun will mean that if you don't settle, there will be so much cost on you. There will be legal fees on you. There will be time spent. So look at that. Is that any reason to settle? If your judicial system is inefficient, how does that come into the mediation part of it? You make yourself efficient. And of course, I've opened the wrong channel. This channel I don't like to get into, but if we've moved in that direction, I don't want to get into it. But that's not the mediation that I even want to talk about. People settling because it's a gamble in the courts, that is no reason to settle. And we have to do it. I also have to tell people, look, it'll take so much time, and the appeal process, and this time, not a nice thing to tell people. Because of the inefficiency of the judicial system, if we are taking advantage of it, us practicing on that basis, that one part of our practice is because these people have come here, because they actually on the other side is a ravine they might fall into, so they are sticking on the corner. No, it should be smooth. That makes that comfortable for them. I'll tell you what I keep saying. I'm saying up till the time I'll take you to court or I'll send you to jail, they stop becoming threats. Then we know our judicial system works. Because why should you be scared of just the fact of going to court? If the judicial system works well, if you are innocent, it should work like that for you. In the next day, you should get whatever you need to. On the other side, sending you to jail, why do we have the colonizer system of the jail still there? That is what we have to learn from the indigenous people. How are you going to look at people as whatever reasons they have? There can be crimes conducted. How have the indigenous people handled it? What is their way of going about it? We've got some things coming out from the symposium, which we'll discuss on the last day. We'll discuss those things, but there is so much more that has to happen on that end. We want to stick to the colonizers' system. And while sticking to it, we want to spoil a nice system of mediation, which is again available to the communities all the time. We want to put into people's mind that settlement in mediation is actually not what you want to do. It is you have to do because we are inefficient. So what word we are sending out is that mediation is not something we want to do. We have been forced to do it, and it will never take off. The next person is not, if the user experience, if it's not good, people are not going to talk about it, and the mediation will not develop. It'll just be again a settlement process. Let's call it a settlement process. Let's not even call it mediation through the court system. It's a settlement process.
Actually, in our country, the government, well, the laws or whatever, they try to put the mediation as a primary phase before going to court. So modern mediator start complaining because is that taking away the essence of the nature of the mediation. Is not the mediation is not just a step to have the ordinary justice. The root is different of the mediation, as you said.
Let me tell you that the base is wrong. Base is that the courts have nothing to do with mediation. But because, but like I said, inefficiencies of the court, they want to get their backlog out. They've done it. I'll tell you where it's reached now. Recently, there was a case where the court looked at the fact that you did not go into mediation in good faith, so you are going to be penalized for that. I mean, now you're going to study the intention of the parties going into mediation also. That's a very interesting case. I'll send you the link to that article. I didn't read the case totally, but I just read the person who's written an article on it. So now the courts are going to go into that aspect of it. And even in some countries, the law says that in good faith, you have to go for mediation. I mean, what are you going to test, and who's going to come and give evidence on it? That means what you're going to do is that the mediator, the whole thing concept that mediator should not be called into for evidence. Now you'll call the mediator to find out whether they went in good faith or not. What level will you keep taking it at?
I know. And what happened with the voluntarity? That is the most principal value of the mediation. You just put like an stage, the mediation process is not fair with the mediation. I think like you do, actually.
Yeah, because look, finally, the point is that a person has a certain legal stand which they want to stick to. Right or wrong, I mean, that's up to them. They have a court to go to. You have a court. Either you dismantle your courts. You have a court, which means a person has a right to come to you. If the person comes to you and says, no, you decide for me, for whatever reason. I mean, there's a cultural aspect to it. Some people don't want to take decisions themselves. They say, no, someone else will take the decision for us. That's one of the reasons why the court systems are there, because we don't want to decide ourselves. Okay, you decide. Let's blame it on someone else. So they've come to you for that reason. Now you can't push them away because you are inefficient. If the person said, no, I don't want to go for mediation, and you say, no, we'll put costs on you because you are not going for mediation. This is what started now. That's what started. We'll put costs on you if you don't go for mediation. You've taken it to that level because you are the most inefficient institution. Not you, Gabriela, the court system. Court system
I know.
is the most inefficient institution. Get your house in order. Do not do this to a process which we want people to follow because they want to collaborate. They want to understand the other person's issue. They want to look out. They reaching out to a human being, not put them into this kind of adversarial concept. No, you do this, you do that, and you have, no, I think there's a lot of that, which of course we can't, because look, finally the colonization system, the colonizers' courts and the colonizers' judges, they do what they want to. This is like they are above the law. That's the stage they reach. Which other institution in a country I'm talking for a country like ours, can have matters pending for 20 years? What institution can do that? No other institution in the country can do that. The judges will get after that. If the government delays something for 20 years, what they will go and sanction the government on these issues. The courts, which is what a symposium which starts on September 15th, which Gabriela, you have to be part of. Elizabeth, you have to be part of. It is colonization, decolonization, and mediation. These are the issues we'll discuss there, because these are issues which are actually, these are at the core of the whole problem. And with in relation to the indigenous people, about their whole system of resolving disputes which were dismantled through colonization. We have to get back to that. So whole idea was, in this symposium, let us at least talk about, there are some positives still there which were not dismantled. In some places, people are building those back. Those systems are, of course, being recognized. And if countries like yours have ratified the ILO convention, it's a much step ahead to recognize those systems, to whatever comes out from that, the resolution, to give it acceptance. The actual thing is, finally, that up till that result is not accepted, what use is it putting that together? So at least the ratification of such conventions and in the constitution to give support to those resolutions. So all that work, let's put it out in this symposium, all the positives which are happening. Then in the next one, all the negatives which are happening, we'll get to that.
Actually, we have to. It's better if we talk just about the positive things.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what the idea behind this was. You took me to that direction, Gabriela. I did not want to go there.
Yeah, let's start to build, to curate path for a cultural path. That is our work, I guess. As I said before, we have this great opportunity, let's say, like said Lisbeth, to share concepts, to learn from you, Vikram, from you, Lisbeth, from Ken Cloke, from everybody around the world, how to handle conflict and be the support that the world needs. This person like us create a peace all around the world.
But I tell you, Gabriela, for that, this is what that whole concept of that world mediation circle and mediation circles is. Let all this, the negatives which are happening, let that happen. How much? Let that happen. That's another world. On the ground, at the ground, let us start creating that culture. So you have to work on that. It's your theoretical part of it is one part. Now a practical part. Let's go down to that school next to you or wherever you live. There's a school. Let's go tell that school. Let's create a mediation circle here. You identify those people who have the children, identify those children who have the mediator mindset. We don't have to tell them who they are. They will find those people themselves. Let's tell them that if you have disputes, please, you have a mediator there. And of course, I talk about the peacemaker, which is all on my website. You have a look at that. Let's start creating those things. That's the positive.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I start to create mediation in my own house with my own kids, with my husband, and how we deal conflicts. You know, I learned to my big boys, okay, do not fight, talk each other, put in the feet of the other person.
But the only thing is that, are they within your family? Have the children told you who has the mediator mindset in your family? Have they said that Gabriela is going to be the mediator in the family or not?
Kind of, sometimes, not all the time.
So that's why I said, let them decide who the mediator is going to be. Let us not push anyone on them. So
actually, sometimes I prefer somebody else can be the mediator in my family, not me.
No, you are not going to have the preference. They have to have the preference. They say, look, so it could be someone in the family, it could be someone in the community. They say, look, in disputes, we trust this person to help us resolve the disputes. Those are the names we need. Each one will ask everyone around them, who are those people? Let's get those people. Those are the people who are the mediators, because the user experience is guaranteed. Let's identify those people. Let's get them into whatever skill development has to happen. There is enough material on that. Skill development, not a problem. If 40 hours, we'll give them 400 hours. Not a problem. There's enough material available. The point is getting the right people. So let's identify that. Today, what you do is, please, on your children, just ask them that who is that person or people that you know, who people trust to help them resolve the dispute. Elizabeth is going to do the same thing. Let's get those names. Then we'll have a Zoom meeting where we'll call those people, the ones who have identified them and the ones who've been identified. And we'll ask them. Why I want to do that is because when you hear those people talk about these people, they will tell you everything about mediation, because they know everything about mediation. The people who use them and the people who do it. That's just that word that we try to put across as some technical thing. The word, take it out, tell them the process. And I'm saying take it from the Singapore Convention. That's the best way it's put out there. Tell them that third person helping you resolve a dispute, but doesn't have the authority to impose a solution. That's it. That's the process. Whom do you know? Have you tried it? How did you do it? What was the issue? You'll know that mediation is always happening. It's all there. Those people are there. Let's bring that out. Idea is to connect people, which was the theme in the symposium last year. If you look at my website, if you read out there, that was the theme. The point is, the word they might not be familiar with. They're familiar with the process. So let's connect them to the process. And after that, once we connect them to the process and they give us those names, we ourselves will understand who are the people we want to take forward and take them, whatever, like I said, skill development required, we'll do that for them. That whole atmosphere required for them to do the mediations, all that can be done. So it's just a matter of that starting off. So what I will do is let me put it up there, because I'm not just saying it. This was something which is part of on my website which no one reads. So this was a symposium last year. And I have to boast. Look, Gabriela doesn't know Elizabeth, but I have to tell her there were 97 speakers from 45 countries. So it was called the Woodstock of mediation. So this is what here, the definition, first I put out the definition because I really like it. Now from here, if you read from here, this is what I'd put out.
The one on the familiar with the word mediation. Okay. Well, I didn't have the pleasure to be in those conferences in those days, Vikram.
I know, but I'm just saying that the concept is basically something which is kind of come into this symposium. It is now a little more specific, little more specialized, indigenous peoples and mediation, but it comes from there. The fact that we talk there, it was a larger thing about communities in general. Here we're going down to the indigenous people, because I still feel that I keep saying that maybe a purer form of mediation, we might be able to bring something out from them. Let's pick up from there, because finally, look, it is a matter of people using the process. They will use it the way they want to. It will take that form. It will be that the whole development will happen in the way that they want it to happen. We are never going to be able to put it to them. The process will go the way they want it to go. No one else needs to do anything there, because this whole concept of evaluative, facilitative, transformative, all that keep talking about, that's theory. When that person is sitting there, all those things are happening. You are not, there's no checklist there. Oh, now am I being evaluative? Oh, no, parties want you to be. Have I been? Those are things which happen. Those things happen. But we are so stuck in that theory part of it, forgetting that, look, people have to use it. It's a process they have to use. They will take it where the mediator, if they want the person to suggest something, they will ask the person to suggest it. Finally, it's between them. How it happens, it has to happen.
That's true. Between them and the reality, actually. That's
exactly.
True.
So I don't think we need to, because I'm telling you, it's easy to look at all the theory part of it. Definitely, we can keep talking about it. On the ground, they know everything. We don't have to take any theory to them. But do they really need those words? All those technical words and all that theory, do they need it? Finally, in the interaction between human beings, I ask people very simple thing. Tell me how you walk. Put it into words. Every little action that happens when you walk, put it into theory. If you tell someone that theory, they won't even know what you're talking about. Because, oh, put this muscle of this leg and this bone of this leg, put it there and take no, they don't want to know what is the name of that bone. It is there, so they are going to walk.
Yeah, everything works together.
No, I don't want to know what is the tibia and what is the fibula, and no, I have to walk. Yes, it's nice to you, very nice when I have time and I don't have anything else to do, to know that this bone is called the tibia. Damn good. How does it matter to me? My leg has to move. So that muscle is called XYZ, and that one moves, and 500 other muscles are involved in it. Oh, no, I have to walk. Let people walk. We are stopping them from walking, trying to put this whole, I don't know what theoretical thing on their head, which I know. I mean, look, I'm on the other side, like I told you, Gabriela. I'll keep fighting on the other
No,
side.
it's okay. It's okay. I'm learning from you. You're learning from me. I'm learning from Lisbeth. That's the nicest thing in this conversation. So thank
But
you for it.
no, but Gabriela, the only thing is now we have to actually do work on the ground. That is what the thing is. So Elizabeth is also going to be looking at. But Elizabeth, anything that you want to ask, Gabriela? I mean, I went into my rant. Is there anything that you wanted to?
Well, uh, wonderful conversation, by the way. I love it. Again, this is a way to keep learning from each other. I just wanted to ask you, from your experience working with the indigenous peoples in Ecuador, what do you think are their main sources of conflict? Because I know you mentioned in the PowerPoints how important it is for them, the concept of stealing, lying, or being lazy. So is that related to their actual conflicts or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I guess the indigenous people in our country want to be heard about their rights because they want the same labor opportunities that mestizos, for example. They want help subsidies, for example, in farming and in agricultural products, and they need help from the government. And the government, there is no path between the government and these indigenous people. So that is the complicated way to solution. But it's not necessarily if they steal or they have neighborhood problems, because everybody does. I do have problems and they have problems too. Is the access to the government, the access to the law, the access and recognize they also have needs, and nobody listen to them. So that is the big issue that I can perceive, or I can see from the indigenous reality. I don't know if I can say what I think, Lisbeth.
Yes,
No,
perfect.
Gabriela, what you need to do is, if you can take out time next week, can you do a presentation in Spanish?
Yeah, I can do
Because
in
because
Spanish. It
because
will be
that's missing.
better.
Yeah. No, but that's missing in the symposium. That is missing. In the last symposium, there were people who gave their presentation in Spanish, because the Spanish speaking audience, because I don't want them to get left out from the discussion. A lot of them have not come in only because of language, which is that's why I wanted Sebastian. But I think there is that apprehension that people have that, of course, whether they should speak in Spanish or not. I've been telling them, look, language doesn't matter. So last year there was someone who spoke in French, in Russian, in I think
Yeah.
yeah. So there were everyone. So I think if you have time next week, if you have what, maybe Monday, if you can do it on Monday, 6 o'clock, or same time, whatever time, just to do only in Spanish, no translation. No translation, because I'll tell you, otherwise it's quite painful for someone to listen to something in English and then listen to it in Spanish. Let's just go and just give the presentation in Spanish.
Yeah, well, maybe as you say, maybe many people do not speak English and want to see the presentation in Spanish. Maybe they understand better in Spanish than in English. So
But is it?
they have the two options there.
But can you then make your slideshow also in Spanish?
Yes, I can do it. I don't know if the next week, but maybe the other one.
No, Gabriel, we don't have enough. Look, then now we have to close this symposium on 31st.
Oh, okay,
Cannot take it.
let's look for a time, okay?
We just need 1 hour. That's all we need. Just 1 hour. Any day, if you can take it out on Monday or Tuesday. We have 2 days.
Yeah, okay. Just let me see my schedule and I will give you a date. It's okay. Don't worry. Thank you for it.
So we have a Monday and Tuesday. So there are only 2 days left.
Okay.
Because Wednesday is the last day of the learnings and key takeaways. So we'll close it at that. We don't want to take it.
Yeah, and I guess we have like a big Zoom and on Wednesday,
Yeah,
Vikram?
Wednesday, 7 o'clock India time.
Mhm.
So that day we'll just have that discussion, because this time I'm not extending it. That other one that I'm talking with, the 97 speakers last year, was only because I didn't stop. I said, someone wants to speak, let them come in. It was supposed to be for 1 month. It went on for 2 months. But this time I want that other topic to be discussed, because colonization, decolonization is something we need to discuss, because this kind of, in a way, I mean, it doesn't end discussions, but in a way, this series that I wanted discussed, everything gets discussed. Now we work on the ground. So that World Mediation Circle and the mediation circles in every community, now we work on actually putting that in place. After people look, I keep saying, if you appreciate the work that I am doing and the direction, then you come into that, because there is definitely lots of ways that mediation has to be promoted, and people will do that. I mean, I'm just saying, I have put across what my thought process is over this time. This is the way I'm looking at mediation and developing mediation. So whoever thinks that, yes, this is how we want to do it, come together, let's start doing it in every corner of the world. And we are part of the larger whole. So we're all available to each other. Elizabeth is available to you. You are available to her, and everyone else. Everyone's available to each other. Let's have good discussions. No negative aspect. Only
No.
okay. When it comes to the court system, I get a little carried away. I don't like to do that, but okay, that's a little
And
negative that
sometimes
comes
you
in.
need to cooperate both sides, but
But we'll have only positive conversations. We'll do some positive work. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And we had a session with Lynn right now, but it seems that she's not going to come in. So if it's what I can do is I can end this session here. What do you think, Elizabeth? Is she going to come in or not? Lynn is
I
not
truly believe she's not, because I know she has been dealing with those family issues for a few days. So I don't think she will be able to.
No issue at all. So let me end it here. Gabriela, any concluding remarks from you? Anything that you want?
no, not right now. No, thank you, Vikram. I think I've been saying everything and make it right now.
Okay, I'll tell you what the thing is. That's a polite way of me to tell you. Now you can thank me.
Okay, thank you, Vikram, once again.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
This conference, and thank you, Lisbeth, to be here. Because I think maybe the reality of Venezuela and Ecuador is almost the same one. So it was really nice to have you here with me, sharing this screen and these talks.
And Elizabeth,
thank you for letting me participate. And Gabriela, amazing presentation. It was really, really wonderful. And I still have a lot to learn from you. I hope you can keep giving. I will join the Spanish one, of course, whenever you're able to do it. But thank you for sharing your experience.
We'll fix the time right now, Elizabeth. You'll get to know the time right now. When we end this, we cut the live stream. We're going to take the time from Gabriela right now. We won't leave it to her sending us a message. Otherwise, it won't happen. We'll take the time. So, Elizabeth, you have any concluding remarks on the session or anything else?
I just would like to continue joining all this session and getting together and getting these mediators team ready to help everyone around the world. So, so thankful to be part of this.
Perfect. 31st, we have that session at 7 o'clock to do the learnings and key takeaways. So thank you very much.